were involved with the law enforcement breakfast and also Yom HaShoah. There were a lot of people involved, and they really made for a success. Thank you, guys. Highly appreciate it. Some sad news. One of our members, Ed Gottlieb, passed away several weeks ago. I looked up his, when he joined SJMC Men's Club. He had been a member since 2009. So if everybody would rise possibly, and we'd give him a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. Thank you. One other mention that Ed Silver called me this morning. He has an emergency with a patient, so he won't be here. But he told me that Steve Horowitz has hip surgery, or is having it, or has had it. So a good, speedy recovery, and we'll send out a card from the Friends Club to him. This morning you'll notice that there's no sign-up sheets for paying $7. This is a free breakfast. This is graciousness of our hosts here, and I'd just like to say that in your heart, if you would like to, instead of giving $7 like we normally do, if you'd be interested in possibly providing a donation for either JFCS or the lunch program at JCC, it would be highly appreciated. South Jersey Men's Club will match whatever you put in, so please consider seeing, where is it? There you go. All right, there you are, Jay. Seeing Phil, just tell him what the donation would be for. It'd be highly appreciated. Okay, are there any new members or guests here? Could you please rise? Just give us about a 1-minute spiel about yourself. Well, you want 2 minutes? You have 2 minutes.
I am from Cherry Hill originally. I have a chiropractic center at the Jewish Community Center. It was a facility. Bill Bridges told me about men's group, which I was not there until now. And
Thank you. Now, we're going to try to keep this meeting relatively short. As most of you probably know, Israel 70 is being essentially taken care of at the JCC. And we'll talk a little about this afterwards, about volunteers who may have already signed up or who are still wanting to sign up. No big thing, but if you want, you can go over to Cherry Hill High School East, and there'll be a little bit more spoken about that after this. Okay, Scott, would you like to do the Motzi? What?
You should just repeat what you said.
I'll do it after breakfast, okay? All right. If you'd like to, yeah. All right, again, we're trying to keep this meeting short because of the Israeli 70, what's going on at the JCC today. So anybody who's volunteered or wants to volunteer to go to assist with Israel 70, all you have to do is drive over to Cherry Hill High School East and see the person at the volunteer desk. If you do go, even if you don't volunteer, I've been told that the intersection of Crescent and Springdale will be closed, so you'll have to come in from the Crockwell Cooper. Yes?
Where did you say the volunteer desk was?
It's going to be in the parking lot, to my understanding.
Cherry Hill.
Cherry Hill High School East.
It might be at the JCC.
I thought it was at the JCC.
Is it at the JCC? I thought I read it was.
Now, the parking's at East.
Yeah, I know that, but okay. Yeah, Bob.
An email that was sent out like 2 days ago listing the different jobs that they may have. indicated that the volunteer desk was at the JCC.
Is it? Okay, I stand corrected then. So again, if you are interested in volunteering or just going to the event,
But you have to park it east.
you have to park at Cherry Hill High School East. Rich Moskowitz, where are you? Rich would like to make a slight presentation.
We talked about if anyone's going to be giving money to the breakfast today, we can donate it to charity. The Jewish, what is it, the fund, the food fund? What?
It's the food bank as well as the JFCS.
Yeah.
Lunch programs.
We've always supported that quite a bit, and Andy Lowe has been running it for the past few years, and her son a couple of weeks ago, Jake of blessed memory, passed. And if we take any money, I would like to make a suggestion that we give donation to that fund in honor of his name. Okay, so if that's good, so any money that we can collect, we can put in honor of him. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm here to talk about the two things I've sent you emails on, or Randy sent emails on. One is that we have tickets to one of the movies that has been postponed because of the bad weather, and we still have tickets available for it. It's a movie called On the Map, which is a story of the Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball team that out of no place, where like the Miracle on Ice, the U.S. team beating the Russians, they beat the Russians in the European Basketball Championship. It's a fantastic movie, and I still hope we have more people going. It's going to be shown on June the 27th, a Wednesday at 7 p.m. at Temple Beth Sholem. Still have tickets available. They're $11, discount from $12. Hopefully I'll have people interested in buying those tickets. Yes, Dick?
That's June and not April?
Pardon?
Is the date June 27th?
June 27th. Yeah. There are other movies that have been postponed that hopefully you will see. There's Bye Bye Germany, a movie I've seen already. It was very good. At 1 p.m. at 4/27, April 27th at the JCC. And there's a movie called Keep the Change at the AMC in Voorhees at 7 p.m. on May 2nd. The other thing I want to talk to you about is that I'm trying to get a group to go to see The Soul. Before we had the Eagles winning the National Football League Championship, we had The Soul that's won the Arena Football League Championship. They're a good team. They play indoors, and because it's a short field, there's a lot of scoring, so it's a lot of interest. And the day I've picked is a day that there is a Jewish Heritage Day, and you'll get a T-shirt, Jewish T-shirt, and Randy sent you a picture of what that T-shirt will look like. We're getting $18 tickets, which is on the side, and it's going to be at the Wells Fargo Center in downtown, where all of the indoor sports are played. If anybody's interested, please either see me or follow up the email that Randy has sent to contact me about it. It's $18, and I think that's well worth it. Oh, the date? Yeah, I got all those dates. The date is Sunday, June 10th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And about 2 years ago, we had a group that went, and I think those of you that went had a very good time. Right, Stan? You were there. And I think it's a lot of fun. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Again, since I promised we'd try to make this meeting brief, it's time for Dave Schwartz to bring our guest up.
Good morning. Thank you to all of you for coming, rather. I'd like to say that this is our, I think, third breakfast here over the years, and I want to thank everyone involved in inviting us from Lionsgate. David, thank you very much. Susan Kushner, Susan Love, Sandy Kushner, sorry. Anyway, I thought it was a terrific breakfast. Let's hear a hand for Lionsgate. Very nice. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to get down to business here. David Gutin is president of senior housing for the Federation, and he is our speaker today to tell us about this wonderful organization. Please welcome David.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Lionsgate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jewish senior housing. We have a PowerPoint presentation, and Alex is going to be my tech support and make sure that everything winds up on the screen. You can follow along with that.
Yeah, the lights on the screen are so bright.
Okay, much better. Okay. What I want to do is put things in perspective in terms of our organization. I am the president, which means I'm the chief volunteer for Jewish senior housing and healthcare services, okay? And I got involved with Jewish senior housing and healthcare the same way that many people get involved at the JCC or at their synagogues. About 15 years ago, my parents moved into Gesher House, which is one of our senior independent living buildings on Chapel Avenue. And I got involved with Jewish senior housing because I wanted to help improve the quality of life for the people, including my parents, who were living in Jewish senior housing. Jewish senior housing is the umbrella organization. It's affiliated with the Jewish Federation, but it's not part of Jewish Federation. It is an independent corporation, okay? And what we do is we operate 3 independent senior living residences. And we operate the entire Lionsgate continuing care retirement community. So we have responsibility for this whole campus, and I'll talk to you about that, but we also have these 3 buildings that we operate. Dubin House, Gesher House, and Saltzman House. Dubin House was the first building our Jewish Federation got involved in, and that was opened in the late 1970s. Dubin House, again, independent living. We're not dealing with providing any kind of assisted living or nursing home care or anything like that in these buildings. Saltzman House was the next building we opened. That opened in the late 80s. Dubin House is on Chapel Avenue, just off Kings Highway. It has studio apartments and single bedroom apartments. Saltzman House, all single bedroom apartments. And then Gesher House, again, which opened in the early 2000s, all single one-bedroom apartments. The activities in those buildings allow the people to engage in activities, have social activities, but people who are living in those buildings are living independently. Many of them still drive. Those that don't drive often choose to live at the buildings that are on Chapel Avenue, Gesher and Dubin, right near Kings Highway, because there's public transportation available. There are buses on both Kings Highway and Chapel Avenue. Saltzman House, that many of you may be familiar with, is the building right behind the JCC. There is no public transportation on Springdale Road or on Crescent Road. So for people who live in that building, they rely on people who may provide rides, volunteers who can help out, and obviously there is transportation through New Jersey senior and handicapped transportation, but that's limited and you have to sign up well in advance. So what we find is we have a population at Dubin and Gesher that's a little more independent and getting around a lot better, and at Saltzman, not as many people are driving, though there are some who do continue to drive. Saltzman has the benefit people can literally walk next door to the JCC if they want to and are able to enjoy those programs. There are people at Dubin and Gesher, we have a significant number, especially in Dubin, who are Soviet Jewish immigrants who came here in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and people who've aged in place. Some of those residents are Russian-speaking individuals who are in their 90s today and who are still living at Dubin and Gesher House. and they take advantage of some of the programs our community provides for Russian speakers in this community. There are lots of activities. There are art programs, computer classes for our residents. We do have a kosher congregate meal program for people on limited income who qualify and who sign up for that program. And we also do transportation for seniors, which we subsidize through our fundraising. So there are trips to Atlantic City, for example, or there'll be a trip into Philadelphia to go see a show. We charge all our residents to do those activities, but there may be theater tickets where they're paying $10 for something where the theater ticket costs $30 or $40 or $50. We think it's important that people participate and realize there is some cost associated, but through the fundraising that we're able to do, we can provide substantial discounts to make it easier for people to participate. We own a bus, and that bus will take them to Philadelphia, take them to the shore, etc., so that they can really be involved in those kinds of activities. And if you ever see the bus leaving from these buildings, it has the ability to take people and their walkers and their wheelchairs. And we want people to be as independent as they can be, and some of those people have to use walkers or wheelchairs to get around. We'll go to the next slide. Lionsgate is the other piece of Jewish senior housing. Don't go back, but I want to mention there are income restrictions for the people who live at our 3 independent housing buildings. Those are government mandated. We are low-income senior housing. We were government funded when we were built. There are different programs that supported the construction of those buildings, but each building has different income restrictions. Saltzman House is the most generous in terms of what people can earn, and I believe that an individual's income has to be, I think the highest income for Saltzman House may be about $35,000 a year from all sources. If your income is higher than that, you don't qualify. And it's not the Jewish community saying you don't qualify, it's the government saying you don't qualify. The income levels at some of the other buildings is lower. We do not prevent anybody from coming in because they have too little income, and the rents at Gutin and Gesher are sliding scale. So if we have a senior who's getting $12,000 a year in Social Security, they may be paying rent of $100 a month for an apartment that somebody who makes $25,000 a year pays a higher rent for. So everything is set by a government schedule. We have waiting lists for our building, but I encourage you, if you know people who are low-income seniors, and some of you may have neighbors, friends, parents, relatives, even though there are waiting lists, it makes sense to suggest to people they sign up. Get on the waiting list. If their name comes up and they're not ready to move or not interested, they can always take a pass. But this is something that we have available in our community. One of the other things to keep in mind is that these are non-sectarian buildings. When they were originally opened, we advertised like hell in the Jewish community, and almost everybody who moved into the buildings when they were brand new was Jewish. Over time, as word got out that these were nice places to live and they were subsidized rents, more and more people from the broader community have learned about us, gotten on the waiting list. Today, at Gutin and Gesher House, the residents are about 50% Jewish, and the rest are not Jewish. At Saltzman House, where there's no public transportation available, the residents are more like 90% Jewish. Also, the access to the JCC is probably a factor there as well. So we would love to see more members of the Jewish community on our waiting list so that we have a larger Jewish population. But again, when somebody comes up on the list, next person, they get selected. Sometimes you hear stories about, well, if you know somebody, you can, move to the top of the list. That does not apply to any of these buildings. We're subject to government regulation. They look over our shoulder. We have to follow. You're next on the waiting list. You're the next one we talk to. So I think that's something just that people ought to be aware of. Okay, now I'm going to move to Lionsgate, which is where we are right now. Lionsgate is a continuing care retirement community, okay? And we focus on wellness. We have 162 independent living units, apartments and cottages for people who want to maintain an active lifestyle. And this room that you're in right now, this is our, we call it Commons Hall. If anybody in this room wants to make a substantial donation, we would be very happy to have this be Goldberg Hall or whatever name you'd like to put on this room. We don't yet have a donor for this. But behind the screen, you can see around the sides, there are Chagall windows that are reproductions that we just put up on the wall around our ark, which is in the back. Those were all painted by residents here at Lionsgate in our art studio. And we have an active program that people participate in of activities, including art classes and an art studio where they can do that work. And we're very, very proud of the work that our residents did. And those are the reproductions of the Chagall windows done by our residents. Lionsgate, as I say, is a continuing care retirement community, which means that once you move here, and if you start in our independent living, you will be able to remain at Lionsgate for the rest of your life. We have 58 assisted living apartments here. So people who start out in independent living, if they need to transition to assisted living, they can make that transition at whatever time is appropriate in their lives. And those decisions are made with the residents, made with their families. As part of assisted living, we have an area called Safe Haven, which I believe is 13 studio apartments. And that is for residents who have memory issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, and they need to be, if you will, in a locked area so that they cannot wander off. But that area of our assisted living, these are people healthy enough, they're ambulatory, and we have programs geared to those specific residents. Sometimes what we find is we have people who move here as a couple, and they're both healthy and active, and unfortunately one of those residents develops dementia. And it allows people living at Lionsgate to remain on the campus, but one of those residents may move over to assisted living. The spouse can go within the building, they don't have to leave the building, visit with their spouse every day, have meals with their spouse if they want, but at the end of the day, they can go back to their apartment and get a good night's sleep. And they're not disturbed by somebody who wanders at night or who is up in the middle of the night because they don't know day from night, etc. It provides people with peace of mind that for people who try to maintain their spouses at home when they develop those problems, it really is a tremendous strain on the healthy spouse. And we find that this is an option that, while difficult to choose, in the long run is probably better for the health of both individuals. The assisted living, we have a registered nurse manager who decides what level of assistance people need. We have 3 different levels of assistance in assisted living, and the cost of the assistance varies depending on the level of care that an individual needs. Assisted living is not skilled nursing, and I'll get to that in a moment, okay? The assisted living has both studio apartments in it and 1-bedroom apartments available. We do not generally have assisted living units for couples. We have, I think, 1 unit right now where a couple resides together. We actually took down a wall and combined 2 units to make it a larger unit. But the way this was designed, it wasn't designed for couples to come together to our assisted living. We require a certain income level for people to live in assisted living because we have a policy here that we do not throw people out of assisted living. So we want people to move to assisted living with a minimum net worth of $250,000. That's somewhat negotiable depending on whether they have higher Social Security, higher pensions. But we want to have a sense that these people will be able to remain as paying residents, if you will, of our assisted living facility. While we are a not-for-profit agency, we are not in a position where we can support a large number of people who are not able to pay the freight. One of the reasons we do independent fundraising is to do some of the programming for our residents that's not covered by the fees, but because there are instances where people in assisted living, and I think this is because we do a very, very good job of taking care of our residents. And statistically, I believe what I heard was usually in assisted living facility, people move in and live there for 2.5 to 3 years. We have people who've come to us initially in assisted living. We opened about 11 years ago. They're still here. And we believe that part of that is because we do such a good job of providing care and of the concern we show for our residents that they're able to thrive in that environment. Sometimes, if we're lucky enough that people have lived long enough, they actually outlive their resources. And we make a commitment that we're not going to throw anybody out once they've moved to Lionsgate. So that's why we want people to have a certain amount of net worth coming in, and that hopefully we won't be in that position. We have 4 residents right now in assisted living who qualify for limited Medicaid. For assisted living, the government provides almost no assistance. So we get $80 a day per resident living in assisted living. The cost of providing care if somebody's on Medicaid in assisted living is higher than that. Especially, usually the people running out of money are the ones who need a higher level of care. If someone reaches the point where assisted living is not appropriate, we then have people move and transition from our assisted living facility to our skilled nursing facility. And our healthcare center is a combination of skilled nursing, and we also have a rehab center. Our skilled nursing has 78 skilled nursing beds. There are some semi-private rooms where 2 people share a room. The way those rooms are set up, my mother was a resident here in a semi-private room for about 8 months. There is a divider in the room, so if you're sharing a room, you don't actually see the person who's on the other side of the room, but you're in one space. And most of the rooms are private. The skilled nursing facility and assisted living, you can come from the outside and become a resident of assisted living or skilled nursing if there are beds and rooms available, even if you were not an independent living resident. But we guarantee everybody in independent living that they get first priority if they need to transition from one part of our facility to another. So if somebody in independent living needs to go to assisted living, and we have a waiting list of people who are looking to go to assisted living, we don't go to the waiting list if somebody in independent living needs to transition and move over. They get first priority, they bump to the head of the list. The same thing for our skilled nursing facility. If someone in our independent living has a stroke and they need to transition because of the care that they need to a skilled nursing facility, they will move to the top of the list. The first opening there will go to somebody who's already a resident of Lionsgate. But we do get people from outside Lionsgate who move to both assisted living and skilled nursing. Our skilled nursing provides daily programming and activities appropriate for the functioning level of the residents. We manage medication. We do that in assisted living as well, so that residents get the medication they need at the appropriate time and somebody's monitoring that. There's medical care on-site and nursing on-site for assisted living and skilled nursing. Both assisted living and skilled nursing get 3 meals a day. This is a kosher facility. All the meals are kosher. That is not the case with a lot of Jewish organizations elsewhere in the state and in the area. There are some organizations that operate skilled nursing facilities where kosher is an option. They bring in prepackaged meals. Here, this is all made from scratch every day. The people get assistance with meals if they need it. If they're in skilled nursing, people will help feed people that need that kind of assistance. But again, we encourage as much independence as possible. I go to skilled nursing every Saturday after Shabbat services and visit with some of the residents. Yesterday, I visited with one of our residents. Some of you may know Ethel David. Ethel David's a resident of the community who lived in Camden originally and then Cherry Hill for many years, and now she's a resident in our skilled nursing facility. She founded the auxiliary that we used to have at the Jewish Geriatric Home as a volunteer, and eventually transitioned to be a resident here. Ethel's 102. And Ethel feeds herself in the dining room. She's in a wheelchair, but she's sharp. And Ethel tells stories about what it was like when she drove an ambulance in World War II when she was down in Texas and her husband was working at an army base. I mean, we've got a lot of residents who are fascinating, who have interesting stories to tell, and who are really a pleasure to spend time with. On the other hand, we have residents who have severe dementia issues. We have residents who don't recognize their own family members. We provide a quality of care and a peace of mind for family members and for our residents. They are well cared for, and this is something we take great pride in. The facility at Lionsgate has a rabbi on staff full-time. That rabbi leads services throughout the community for holidays, gives classes to our residents. There's Shabbat services that take place. So again, there is a Jewish environment that we stress throughout Lionsgate. People living in the skilled nursing facility have linen service taken care of, their laundry is done, the linens are changed on the beds and things like that. You know, all of that is taken care of for the residents. As an aside, if you walk through our assisted living, our skilled nursing facility, and I'm sure some of you have been to nursing facilities in the community, some of them are not anything to be proud of. We have gotten a 5-star rating from the organization that rates nursing homes throughout the country. That's the best rating you can get. When you walk through here, you're not going to smell stuff that's distasteful. You're not going to see stuff that's distasteful. You're going to appreciate the fact that we show tremendous respect for all of our residents, and the staff really is top-notch. We also have a short-term rehab facility here, and it's one of those things I want to encourage all of you to publicize. We have 32 rehab beds in a separate building. I know some people got a little fablungent this morning in terms of where to come to, and I hear some people arrived and wound up walking to the wrong entrance. We have 3 different entrances, if you will, to Lionsgate. We have the main entrance in front here to our independent living, which is what you walked through as you came back to Commons Hall. Then we have a separate entrance in the back of the complex, which is where you enter for assisted living and our skilled nursing area. And then at the far, far back of our complex, there is a separate entrance for our rehab facility. And the rehab facility is short-term rehab. We're talking about people who've had strokes, or they've had cardiac incidents, orthopedic issues where they're not being sent home with a new knee or a new hip. For some reason, they need to be in an inpatient rehab for some period of time. And we have gotten outstanding feedback from the medical institutions in the area that send people here for rehab. Keep in mind, the hospitals wind up getting penalized if people leave the hospital and then get sent back to the hospital from rehab. We work very hard to see that doesn't happen, and the hospitals in the area, Virgil, Cooper, are very comfortable referring people to Lionsgate. But word of mouth is tremendous publicity for us. So if you know people who need that type of assistance and who are looking for short-term rehab after a hospitalization, after a fall, please consider Lionsgate. We really appreciate that. I wanted to talk about funding for long-term care. Being in a skilled nursing facility is expensive. Our private daily rate, as you can see on the slide, is $4.45 a day. That means somebody who spends a year in skilled nursing, it's costing somebody who's paying privately over $160,000 a year to be in a skilled nursing facility. Lionsgate, when it accepts somebody private pay, needs to know that they'll be able to at least pay for a year of care as a private pay admission. We do take people and admit people to our skilled nursing facility who are on Medicaid. Medicaid does not pay anywhere near the full cost of care, so that when we decide who's coming in, what we've learned over time is we will not accept anyone who is what they call Medicaid dependent. If you take somebody who's applied for Medicaid but has not yet been approved, and they are here for a month, 2 months, 3 months, while they're going through the Medicaid approval process, and they die before they get Medicaid approval, Medicaid then terminates that process. So that we wind up having had somebody live here for some period of time, and if they don't have the resources to pay us, and Medicaid hasn't yet approved them, we're stuck. So we've learned the hard way. They either have to come in here as private pay, and then when they use up their assets, they apply for Medicaid, or they have to already have Medicaid approval before we will take them. The Medicaid payment, as you can see, is only a little less than $210 a day. It's quite a shortfall. So we wind up trying to balance the number of Medicaid residents that we have with private pay residents. That's part of the business side of things. And thank God we've worked very hard at trying to be able to balance things so that we're not losing too much money. It's the reason we have to do fundraising. It's the reason we have to have the tacos and tequila event that you've got a card on your table for. The reason we look for people to donate funds and we put up signs where we name pieces of this building after people. It's a way that we help to defray the cost of our operation. The best funding we have, by the way, is Medicare funding. And Medicare funding pays for short-term rehab, and they pay at a higher rate than any other kind of government funding. And that Medicare is now paying at $550 a day for people who are in short-term rehab. If we keep our short-term rehab full, we wind up being able to subsidize the cost of residents in other parts of our operation because our beds in short-term rehab were full. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, this really goes to the next slide, Alex, is the state of healthcare today. You read about this in the newspaper. We get reimbursed 1.5% to 3% increase over the past couple of years. The cost of healthcare has been going up at a much higher rate than that. And the current government climate, and this is state and federal, the current government climate is, what can we do to cut funding? And you read articles in the newspaper. They want to cut Medicaid funding. And the general impression is people are taking advantage and they're getting services that they don't need. I can assure you that without Medicaid funding and without increases in Medicaid funding, at some point down the road, an institution, a facility like Lionsgate, could be in a position where we would have to close down our skilled nursing facility, which is not something that any Jewish community wants to face. But we have a long history of providing that type of care for residents in our community. The largest single source of funding for skilled nursing, over half of our residents are on Medicaid in our skilled nursing facility today. So anything you can do to be advocates when you see reports in the newspapers about threats to funding for Medicaid, for health care, please advocate on behalf of not seeing those cuts made. It's very easy for people to say, we need to cut government funding, we want to see taxes cut, but at the end of the day, it's the poorest in our community, especially the seniors who are not able to speak for themselves. Those in a facility like the one we have at Lionsgate, who need our voices to advocate on their behalf. Another challenge we have, going back to the slide before, is we have a shortage of nurses in this area. The demand for LPNs and the demand for RNs, because of the hospitals in the area, the nursing facilities, the assisted living facilities, etc., outnumbers the available supply. If you have relatives, neighbors, friends that are nurses who may be looking for a position, or if you know people who would like to work part-time as nurses and who have that kind of training, I encourage you to have them contact Lionsgate, because we are always looking for full and part-time people who have that kind of expertise. So that's another way in which you might be able to be helpful to us to spread the word in the community. Other ways you can help. I mentioned being an advocate with regard to government funding. Spread the word about the beautiful facility we have. If you, any neighbors you know, friends, family, might be interested in living at Lionsgate, in any of the areas of Lionsgate, we give tours all the time. I hope that some of you, if you're not running off to the Cherry Hill East or the JCC, will stay around today for a tour. Alex, who's been my tech support, is in our marketing department here and is happy to give tours of Lionsgate to anyone here today who would like to take a tour, see the individual units, and have a chance to look at our campus and our complex. We have an organization called the Friends of Jewish Housing, Jewish Senior Housing, and on May 10th, There are little cards on your table. We have an event called Tacos and Tequila. Great tequila, margaritas, food, hors d'oeuvres. It's a fun night. It's a night to network and see friends and see neighbors, but it's also a way for us to raise money to subsidize the programming that we do to help support our residents who can't afford to pay for the services that we're providing. So if you're free on May 10th, sign up, call, and attend Tacos and Tequila. As I say, you're doing a mitzvah by coming, but it's a fun night. The other thing is that for those of you that have time to volunteer, we have volunteer opportunities at every part of what we do. We have volunteers who teach courses or classes in different things, physical fitness, computers at our 3 housing buildings, Saltzman, Dubin, and Gesher. We have people who are friendly visitors who just stop by to spend time with some of our seniors who don't have family members in the area and don't have friends who are shut in, who don't drive any longer. We have various programs that we run where we can use volunteers to help serve if there's a Shabbat dinner or something like that. I know years ago the South Jersey Men's Club used to volunteer at Saltzman House, I believe, especially, and they came to serve Shabbat dinner and schmooze with the residents. And we do that every couple of months where we'll have a Shabbat dinner or a holiday program and have volunteers come in. Here at Lionsgate, we have activities where we can use volunteers. A lot of times we get high school students who are looking for community service hours. But just people to sit and talk with some of the residents, some of the men who are in our skilled nursing facility. Just spending one-on-one time with people who would welcome having company, having somebody who sits and spends some time with them. The gift of your time would be very, very welcome throughout our campus and our community. So that is an overview of who we are, some of the challenges that we face, and I thank you for listening. If you have any specific questions, feel free. Raise your hands and ask.
Thanks, David. That was very, very well done.
Thank you.
And we, as a group, not as individuals, we've done, as you said here, quite a few things, but we haven't had any requests for help for years.
Can we have some help?
I think, what we're usually looking for is not mass help. You know what I mean? It's not like we need 30 volunteers to come and do one thing. We need 1, 2, 3 people who will come to volunteer at a particular, assist with an activity and stuff like that. So if individuals would be willing to volunteer, Cookie Peterson is our Director of Activities here, and if you call Lionsgate and ask for Cookie, she would be more than happy to talk to you about the time you have available and the type of volunteer activities that we would welcome.
David? I just want to mention that this group, our group comes once a month, third Thursday, and has a breakfast over in the assisted living wing with the guys over there. We just had one this past Thursday. We had 12 residents.
That's super. Thank you, Dave. Over there.
What will be the affiliation between the new homes they're building at the annex and the operation here?
There is no direct affiliation, okay? The new buildings that are going up, there'll be 80 apartments, 20 are for disabled adults, and the hope is that it's filled primarily with younger adults who've aged out of all government services, people in their 20s and 30s who need housing, and especially developmentally disabled young adults. The other 60 will be independent living like Dubin, Gesher, and Saltzman. They're government funded. There'll be a waiting list that gets set up, and people will sign up and get selected by lottery for the initial 60 apartments. Actually, for the initial, but the 60 that are independent living. I believe the age is 60 and above for those buildings. They're being built by the Jewish Federation. The hope is that they will then get funding down the road to build an additional 80, again, 20% for disabled adults, and the other 60 for seniors. But that will be operated through the Jewish Federation.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about a couple of questions. One, the people who are at Dubin and the other places, they have a certain income. How are they able to make a transition from there to here? And the other question I have is, what is the capacity currently of this facility?
We have, well, number one, we have a lot of capacity in independent living, okay? We have about 20 vacant units in independent living right now. What we had in the past year and a half, we've unfortunately seen the transition caused by death. People who did not transition through our continuum, but lived very happily and healthily for 9-10 years at Lionsgate, and now the odds are starting to catch up with people. So there are vacancies in independent living. We do not have any transition from the independent living apartments, Gesher, Dubin, and Saltzman, to independent living at Lionsgate. Because Lionsgate, in the independent living area, it's pay as you go, and you need to be able to afford to buy in. And there, you know, if you take the tour, you'll see the price schedule for the independent living. Assisted living, again, is pay as you go. If you are not able to pay when you arrive, you're not going to our assisted living facility. As I say, once you arrive and run out of funds, we're not going to throw you out. The skilled nursing is available to anyone. And we have residents in Dubin, Gesher, and Saltzman who reach a point where, because of illness or infirmity, they become so frail they need to transition to skilled nursing. They often come here as Medicaid residents because they've already run out of assets. We have a lot of residents in Dubin and Gesher who get on Medicaid while they're still living in those buildings. Okay? One more question and then I'll go back.
Recognizing that a lot of the money from the government is decreasing and declining, how does this program modify or come to terms with a lot of these things? I mean, $455 is there any way that you want quality, you want the same type of services, but is there a way to make it more maybe affordable or whatever?
The short-term answer is no. Okay? In all honesty, we have cut where we believe we can cut. But the Jewish community expects a very high quality of service. And we don't, I mean, in our skilled nursing facility, which is where we're talking about those kind of costs, we don't provide two different levels of care. We don't say, okay, you're on Medicaid, we're putting you on the second floor, and we're going to have less staffing up there, or we're going to have, you know, less programming. That's not who we are as a Jewish community. So we provide the same level of care in our skilled nursing facility, whether somebody is paying full freight or somebody is on Medicaid. And where we feel we can cut, we will make cuts. Where we can negotiate a better deal with vendors, we are aggressive about doing that. Whether it's pharmaceutical costs, whether it's food costs, we try to stay on top of that. But by the same token, we want to maintain our 5-star rating. There are, I mean, not to talk down about organizations, but there are a lot of Jewish-owned nursing facilities that are owned by people operating out of Brooklyn and operating out of Lakewood. And when you see the ratings that they get from the government rating agencies, these, in a lot of cases, are your 2-star facilities or your 1-star facilities. Unfortunately, there are some skilled nursing places out there that get no stars, okay? We take a lot of pride in being a 5-star facility. We are a not-for-profit. Most of the places that get no stars and 1 star or 2 stars, all too often are for-profit organizations. That's not what motivates us. We take a great deal of pride in the fact that we provide this level of care for residents of our Jewish community.
What are the costs of a couple moving into independent living?
What is what?
What are the costs of a couple moving into independent living?
Alex, I'm going to defer to you.
Okay.
Because you're the expert when it comes to cost. A lot depends on the size of the unit that you're moving into.
So for my smallest one bedroom, there's two options at Lionsgate, a 90% refundable or 50%. On an Alder, which is the smallest one bedroom I have, the 90% refundable is $239,500.
Is that on the unit or per person?
On the unit. There's a second person fee monthly, so the monthly rent on that is $28.25. For a second person, it's $9.75 a month.
Whoa. So you say you give you $200,000 and pay, say take $250 round the road, and then give you a monthly rental fee also?
The monthly fee, and when
Correct.
you're no longer living at Lionsgate, your estate, your family.
Is this for the rich and famous?
Yes.
It is. I mean, not necessarily famous, but you have to have enough resources to, in effect, buy a unit, okay?
Right.
The difference is that when you finally leave, your family is guaranteed that they will get back either 50% or 90% of what was paid up front. The fee paid every month depends on whether you were a 90% or a 50%. And again, for people who've stayed here 10 years, you know, somebody buys a condo in a lot of places in Florida, and if they stay there 10 years, the market falls for a lot of those places and they have trouble reselling or can't get their money back. Here you do get your money back. And that's part of how, and the other thing I guess is you're given a guarantee, and that's part of what you're paying for. When you move in, you will not have to move out of this campus, so that you have that guarantee that you will move through the continuum, you, your spouse, in whatever way is appropriate for the rest of your life.
Are you still paying, as you go through the different levels, are you still paying that $2,800 a month rent?
You pay a different amount, okay? It's more expensive to be in assisted living than independent living, and eventually in skilled nursing, you're paying the $445 a day. One of the reasons we get that money up front is that if people do run out of other assets, we can take money from that entrance fee that they paid to buy their apartment to continue to support them while they are in assisted living or skilled nursing. And that again helps to assure us that we won't get burned and have somebody where we're getting Medicaid, you know, if they moved in here and were able to, you know, maintain themselves. Right here.
Yeah, David, what kind of bonds do you have to protect like the wealthy people that invest in the Lionsgate? And you said that you may not have something 5 years with this really serious assisted living. What happens if they don't, when they want to go to that point and then you're bankrupt? Do they get any money back? Or are they protected in any way, the wealthy people?
The question is, what protection do people have when they buy in? That the money will be there. We put the money in escrow, okay? There is an escrow where that money is placed, and we have a requirement. I mean, when people pass away, we have not had any problem at all paying those people for their entrance fees that we have to refund to them. There's a timing, there's a certain number of months after someone dies. We have a certain amount of time where we can try to sell the unit, resell, but if it hasn't resold, the family still gets their money back.
What about the protection? Is it bonds you have protecting this place to go through? And what about the serious assisted living? If that ceases, these wealthy people are expecting when they get completely disabled that they get that serious nursing, and you don't have the program anymore. They should be getting something back. You know, because they're
Our hope is that it will not happen, okay?
You gotta repeat the question.
Okay, the question is what happens if we have to shut our nursing home? All I can tell you is that the hope is that our country, our country will not reach the point where they become so hard-hearted and cruel that they wind up making policy decisions that require the wholesale closing of skilled nursing facilities. It will not just be Lionsgate. This will be a systemic problem that will affect our country.
But you're not getting any funds from the Jewish Federation?
We get no funds at all. We do fundraising, but we get no funds at all from the Jewish Federation.
One more question.
Rabbi,
I just want to take a moment and have people understand the cost in a more real sense. Because when we hear these sums, we often compare it to nothing. Everyone here pays money to live. And when we consider the cost of living in Lionsgate and independent living, it's not I'm paying nothing to live now and I pay this exorbitant sum to live here. There is a cost wherever one lives. So when we think about the price, it's really important to think about the differential. The buy-in is about $230 for a unit, basic unit. Most of us here own a house. We've paid for that. But we still have to pay to maintain our house, to feed ourselves, to do all those things. So it's really important when we think about the costs of Lionsgate as independent living, Lionsgate as assisted living, Lionsgate is skilled nursing, is not comparing nothing to this very large sum, and it is a large sum, but the costs that we need just to maintain ourselves at home or another place or here. And that gives us a sense of reality, an understanding of what the real meaning of this is. The other thing is Lionsgate is a community institution. I love Lionsgate. I'm glad I worked here for our community for 25 years, Lionsgate since its opening. It is truly a better place. To be a 5-star rating, to have the U.S. News and World Report sticker, this is the Harvard, the Yale, the Princeton of nursing homes. Could it be better? Everything could be better. David, that's why you work so hard. Is it good? You can't do better. We need to keep that just for our sense of self-respect as a community. We need it for our seniors. We can only hope and pray that every other institution reaches this goal. I want to thank everyone here for being here. I want to thank you for all the support you gave me as rabbi here for many years. I want to thank you for the support you continue to give my successor, Rabbi Reina Grossman. Would love to see you. If you ever want to go to services and they have a long bat mitzvah at yours, come and visit us. Just being here, and I want to thank David for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
just one thing, I know it's the end of the program. Anybody here want to go on a tour? Anybody at all? Raise your hands. 1, 2. Okay. I've got 2 volunteers. Alex will be happy to show you around. Okay?
Okay, before you leave, we have an assignment for you, and that's a quick 50-50. Last 3 digits. 5, 6, 8. 5, 6, 8. Was that Steve Boston?